Well, on this beautiful day, we'd like to get started by making the sound of Om together. So let's take 3 deep breaths. And a deep in breath. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So we're going to look at concentration and meditation today from the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Song of the Lord, ancient 3,000-year-old Indian scripture. And we're going to start off by looking at what Nirvana is, because one of the scriptures talks about Nirvana. So do you have an idea what Nirvana might be?
It's a vibration of bliss and positive energy. It's not the same as the concept of heaven, but the idea that one can elevate their vibrations to a heavenly level of existence.
I think you nailed it. Let's look at what Satchidananda has to say in his commentary on Nirvana. It's the same thing, but I think looked at a different perspective.
New perspectives always help.
Nirvana. Nirvana is a term very often used by Lord Buddha in the Buddhist tradition. Nirvana is mind nakedness. Mind nakedness. Absolute serenity and peace, which I think is what you describe would lead to absolute serenity and peace. Your mind isn't clothed, yourself isn't covered or colored with anything. You're completely free. Mind is completely free in that state of bliss. A totally liberated person is naked. A totally liberated person is naked. The self is naked, uncovered, and that's the meaning of Nirvana. Just that pure state. Now we're going to look at a sloka, or a spiritual saying, which references Nirvana. And this, another comment. In order to experience this, says Lord Krishna is the voice speaking on behalf of the divinity in the Bhagavad Gita. In order to experience this, says Lord Krishna, just think of me and only me. Think of me and only me. That means think of the absolute, try to eliminate all other thoughts. This is an interesting concept. How can we think on the absolute and eliminate all other thoughts?
What means the absolute specifically?
Actually, I have a series of slides on the absolute, which we could look at, and we looked at that last week. So let me bring it up and let's look at it. So go. Let's talk about the absolute. Good question. Here we go. The absolute. It's all a beautiful teaching about the absolute, but how can you even think of the absolute? So Satchidananda asks a rhetorical question. It's very hard, but at least you can feel that the absolute is something vast. Something vast. So we could do a little experiment, if you like, and see how that works for us. So let's just take a moment and close our eyes and try and envision something vast. Envision pure space. Vast. So something may have come up for you when you tried to envision something vast. And actually that's the idea behind the personification of Vishnu, which is a name, one of the many names for God. Personification of Vishnu. A name that means, so here we're going to look at some attributes of vast. The absolute, unlimited, omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. So we can try that little experiment, if you like, again, and see what happens, and see if in that vastness we can experience. Let's try. Let's close our eyes and try and experience again pure space and vastness. Can we experience the unlimited? Can we experience the omnipresent? Can we experience omniscient, all-seeing, everything known, omniscient? Can we experience omnipotent, all the energy and power? So that's a little exercise for us to see what the absolute might mean for us. Morning, Sam.
Good morning.
So Satchidananda now takes a step back from this and says, Omni this, Omni that. Repeat Om and think of Omni. So Om, omniscient, omnipotent, the absolute. Om is a sound that might bring forth in us the experience of the absolute. Nothing can limit you. Just don't think of little or fractional things. That's the absolute.
When you first asked me to visualize the concept of vast, all I
Yes.
thought of was some galaxies or maybe a corner of the universe.
Good.
But when you went into the omni aspects of it, and I did it again, I was thinking not just of this universe in the third dimension, but all the dimensions above and below it that are seen and unseen as well.
So you got an expanded version of vast,
Yes.
or pure space. Good. We did this exercise last week, and someone like you had a similar experience. They began with the stars and the planets and so on, and their vision expanded. Isn't that interesting? Thank you for sharing that. All right. I'm going to switch back now to the other presentation that we were doing. All right, so in order to experience this, the Lord Krishna says, think of me. Let's see. Think of me and only me. That means think of the Absolute, which we just experienced. And while thinking of the Absolute, in that experience, eliminate other thoughts. To me, when your mind is focused on that pure space and Absolute, other thoughts just don't come in. They just don't show up. So here is the sloka we looked at last week. By steadily and continuously practicing yoga in this way, during the last few sessions, we've been looking at how to practice life, including meditation. So by steadily and continuously practicing yoga in this way, the yogi wins over his mind and realizes the peace that is my nature, or God nature. This in turn leads naturally to Nirvana and the Absolute. So by doing the yoga practices, it leads us to an experience of the Absolute, Nirvana. Now we need to take a look at the yoga practices and some of the things we do and don't do that might help us to have the experience of absolute space and nirvana more often in our daily life. Food. For many of us, food is a big challenge.
Indeed.
Satchidananda knows this. Food. So here's a little discussion on food and see if this hits home for you. Saint Ramalingam once said, if a seeker constantly thinks of food, all the merit attained by his practices will melt away like a bundle of salt thrown in a river. If the seeker constantly thinks of food, or thinks of food a lot, the merit obtained by other practices melt away like salt, a bundle of salt thrown in the river.
That's a good quote.
So we got a challenge. Let's carry on here. How much time we spend thinking what to eat in the morning, what to eat at noon, what to eat in the afternoon. How much time we think about. I know I like to think about breakfast. I have a habit of thinking about breakfast when I go to bed at night. It helps me fall asleep, actually. So I don't think about it too long. It does help me fall asleep. We think of menus. We think of diets. We think of balanced diets, macrobiotic diets, organic diets. These are some of the thoughts that we spend a lot of energy on. And if you went to the service today, the service was focused on what we think about and what we could think about. And do we have any control over what we think about? Or does the urge for food so overwhelm us that we're into diets? Too much time is spent thinking of food, making food, eating food. Another saint, here's a tough name to pronounce,
Theumanavar?
Theumanavar, that's it, Theumanavar. The Saint Theumanavar said, I just want to be in solitude, Lord. he was praying. I know I have a body. Occasionally it might need some food. So when I feel hungry, I should be able to just grab anything that's available. A ripe fruit, a dry leaf, or a root, he said. A saintly man. He said, I ought to. Notice the word should. I ought to. It's something I ought to do, but maybe I don't. So this saint had the same issue that we have. He should be able to grab anything that's available.
I've never thought of eating a dry leaf before.
I hadn't either. We use dry leaves as condiments,
Yes.
Crush them up and put them as spice on our food. A ripe fruit, a dry leaf, or a root, a carrot, or something. That means, and this is the essence of it, take anything simple just to satisfy the hunger. Gandhiji would say, eat to live, but please do not live to eat. So a simple diet to satisfy the hunger. Does anyone here know anyone else in their life that in many ways lives to eat? Can you think of anyone who lives to eat?
Sure.
Talks about food a lot. When you look at their posts on Facebook, it's all about new recipes and menus to make new kinds of food. And when you talk to them, they tell you about the last time they went out to eat, and it was so good. So good. I think for some people, food is more and more something to depend on and rely on when other things in your life aren't going that well. I think people learn that when you have certain kind of stresses in your life, not just a one-day stress, but an ongoing stress, something that happens day after day. Some people turn to food as a way of feeling happy and satisfied and distracting oneself from that ongoing stress. When you're eating the food, they've learned they're not thinking of the stress.
Or depression.
Or depression.
Or just numbing out our feeling. We do it both with regards to happiness and sadness.
I think a lot of people look for ways to distract themselves from their problems.
Yes.
Food is definitely one key way, for sure.
So food is a great way to distract ourselves.
And the whole idea is just being mindful.
Mindful. And how do we aim in this direction? Because maybe we all have a little bit of it in ourselves. That's why we recognize it in others where it's more pronounced. Gandhiji would say, eat to live. Can we focus on the food? What's the purpose of food? What's the purpose of food?
Nourishment.
What's the purpose of food? What is the purpose of food? Some would say the purpose of food is to nourish our bodies so that we can be strong and be available to be of service to others. That's the purpose of food. There's no other purpose in it. However, we do enjoy taste, so there's nothing wrong with enjoying the taste of food or having something special now and then. We can still eat to live and not be focused on living to eat.
And as you said last week, it's being able to step outside of ourselves to notice the sensations, in this case the taste buds. Oh, I'm having a sensation of this taste. Right?
Yes, I'm sensing a taste. Actually, that happened to me this morning. I'm on a rather interesting new eating experience. And so yesterday, I chose to abstain from food. And this morning, when I ate breakfast, Everything was very tasty.
Oh, good.
The toast with the butter and the jelly, the egg with the mushroom and the kale and the hot sauce and so on. The tea with a little milk.
There is a saying, I don't know who coined it, hunger is the best spice.
Yes.
I don't know who said it, but I've heard it for quite a while.
Now, I've noticed that even though I may have these taste experiences of being very much aware of the taste, sometimes, generally I don't. Generally, when I'm eating, the food's going down, my mind's somewhere else. In a way, I'm not even tasting it. It's a great experiment to be mindful about our food and the tastiness of it, in addition to focusing on why you're eating it. There's something to focus on while you're eating. I'm eating the food, so my body will be nourished, so I can be of service to others. Oh, and I'm noticing the taste of this and the taste of that. Eckhart Tolle would approve, the man who would be here now, being in the presence of the food. How often people live to eat, Satchidananda says. They forget the goal and let petty things take priority and fill up their lives. Fill up their lives. So to the extent we fill our lives with that, it's something to step back from and think about. Now we're going to talk some more about a true yogi. What does it take to be a true yogi? Meaning to live a life full, focused on our spiritual life and what's ours to do. What are we called to do every day, every moment? A true yogi. A true yogi shouldn't get tangled up in all these things, the food and the thoughts. Yes, you need a little food, a little clothing, and shelter. But for a true yogi, if you're really sleepy, you can't sleep anywhere. You don't even need a cozy bed. If you don't feel sleepy, what happens if you don't feel sleepy? What's Satchidananda going to recommend if you don't feel sleepy? And it's the middle of the night, and you're lying in bed. If you don't feel sleepy, then sit and meditate, he recommends. Take advantage of your not feeling sleepy. And maybe you have some thoughts distracting you, some depression or upsets or whatever in your life. Then he recommends you sit and meditate. Why not?
Is that the taking the step back and noticing the thoughts that are coming?
When you meditate, your purpose is to remove yourself from the tyranny of the mind. You may have varying degrees of success as you meditate, and that doesn't matter. What matters is your intent to head to the meditative state, and even if you fall out of it with those thoughts that were keeping you awake, draw yourself back in. And as long as you have that commitment to draw yourself back in, your meditation in the middle of the night is successful. Is successful. So don't waste your time, he says, with all these daily petty things. Just keep your life very simple. It's like we say, we have 3 treasures in life: simplicity, patience, and compassion. Keep our lives simple. Be patient. Who should we be patient with? First ourselves. First ourselves, then we can be patient with others. And who should we be compassionate with? First ourselves. If we can be compassionate with ourselves, then we can truly be compassionate with others. Keep your life simple. Then you'll have more time to spend in spiritual pursuits, which is what the Lord is saying when he says, think on me, intent on me alone. Think on me, intent on me alone. So now let's look at life as a meditation. What would it be like if life were a meditation?
More peaceful.
What if I were to assert that your life is a meditation right now? Maybe it's just not a guided meditation. What if your life were...
Is that because we're in ego thoughts and behaviors versus the mindfulness?
Our life, for most of us, is filled up with what we think.
Yeah.
To that extent, it's a meditation.
Okay.
As we learn to have some influence over our thoughts and choose more what to think, then our life becomes more a guided meditation.
Yeah.
We choose the quality of the meditation. Life is a meditation. This means that everything you do is all for good. Even the things you don't think are good, or even the things in your past that you remember that you wish you had done differently, are for good. Can we hold them for good? Everything you do is all for good. It's all for God. That's why sometimes we say we can look on experiences in our life as a lesson or a blessing. A lesson or a blessing. All for God and all for good. Now Satchidananda makes a further assertion. Do everything as an offering. In the tradition that Satchidananda comes from, when you go to the temple, you bring something as an offering, often flowers or fruit, and the offerings are placed on an altar. That's not part of our tradition, is it? We don't have an altar here at Unity where we bring things. The only offering we have in Unity is when they pass the basket around, and we either put our money into it, or we visualize some money that we have electronically allocated to the church. I don't know of any other offering we do in our church ceremony.
Physically, right. We bring our own intentions, and we bring our own energies as well.
We bring our energies. Can we think of everything we do and think as an offering? An offering, in other words, we're giving it to God. Can we think of what we do as something we're giving to God, not for the sake of doing it? Can we think of what we think, our thoughts, as an offering to God? Offering to God. Do everything as an offering. Let this be constantly in your mind. When you sit and type, this is an offering to God as I sit and type. When you're outside digging, this is an offering to God. When you're cooking, back to food again. So when you're cooking, this is an offering to God and a blessing for those who will eat it. Offering to God. When you're eating and satisfying the hunger, maybe noticing the taste or maybe not noticing the taste, can you at least remember to think, this eating is an offering to God. My eating is an offering to God. The act of my eating and nourishing my body is the offering I'm making right now to God. So, everything, all things. Here is another way to make our life a guided meditation by making everything an offering to God. In all these spiritual practices, we need to look and see where we are called. Is this a practice that calls to me? And you never know, this practice might call to you now, or you might see this practice recommended another time, and you might be called to it another time. Now we're introduced to it. We haven't heard it before. Let everything be an offering. Then it, or life, becomes a meditation. All the things you're doing and thinking. In your regular seated meditation practice, be thinking, how can I make my entire life a meditation? So here's an alternative in our seated practice. How can I make my entire life a meditation? When I was thinking about this, I thought, how about if we modify this a little bit and make it really specific? How can I make everything that occurs to me today, how can I make everything today a meditation? How can I make everything that shows up today a meditation? All my thoughts today, whatever I eat today, what I do today. How can I make that a meditation? To make the whole day a meditation, you plan here. So in your meditation, you're doing the planning. It's one of the purposes of meditation in the morning. To plan your day. If you meditate, even if you feel you weren't that successful, doesn't matter. Your commitment is to do your meditation practice. And then you may notice, if that's your practice, you have planned the day, because at points during the day that meditation practice may return to your mind and support you in making your life a meditation and making everything an offering. Taking your mind away from the ego thoughts of mine, theirs, his. No. Everything is an offering. You see the peacefulness, the nirvana that comes from thinking like that. When I think this is mine, that's yours. She's doing that. I wish I'd done that. Those are thoughts that can throw you off kilter. Yet, if we choose to think, this is an offering. Thank you, God, for this thought. I choose to look at it as an offering. And I'm watching myself doing, eating, digging, and it's an offering. Can't you just feel the peace in that way of holding things? And isn't peace what we would like to experience more in our lives? To make the whole day a meditation, you plan here. Like winding a clock early in the morning. We don't wind clocks anymore, do we? We have our digitals. But
we have a grandfather clock.
If you got a grandfather clock, you have to wind it, unless you have one of those 7-day ones. But if you have the old-fashioned clock, you wind the clock in the morning, so it goes the whole day. Sit and meditate early, so you'll unwind in meditation the whole day. Just like you wind your internal spiritual clock, so that it tick-tocks all day long with the benefits of that early morning meditation, unwinding in your life, all the moments. You see how that will protect you from the various vicissitudes that show up in life. People say unkind things, perhaps, to you, or you have a thought that things aren't going the way you wished, or someone isn't behaving the way you hope. By having that meditation available to unwind, so that you can see how everything you're doing is an offering, even those egotistical thoughts. Those are like offerings to be noticed as lessons.
Interesting.
Ultimately, Satchidananda recommends put more time in meditation. If you use your only time to meditation, doing yoga postures and breathing practices, so I don't know if that's something we choose to do here. Satchidananda thinks everyone ought to do some yoga postures and breathing practices. And he says, in the event you use your meditation time doing that, the next day cut those short, increase the meditation. You can even do the postures and breathing practices separately in the afternoon or evening. So Satchidananda recommends that for a full life and a peaceful day, we need to include 3 spiritual practices: meditation early in the morning, some yoga postures, asanas, and some breathing practices. Are you familiar with the breathing practices?
No.
Are you familiar with yoga postures? Most people are familiar with the yoga postures because here that's what yoga refers to, the postures. Well, we have a couple minutes. Let's talk a little bit about breathing practices. There's a word for it in Sanskrit. It's called pranayama. Pranayama. Prana is the Sanskrit word for life energy. Life energy. And we know that life energy is associated with the breath. When the breath stops, the energy goes away and we die. Pranayama. So it's the practice of life energy, breathing. I demonstrated one breathing practice a couple of weeks ago. It's a practice of tummy breath. I'll demonstrate it. It goes like this. We take a big breath, let it all out, take a small breath, and breathe like this. Moving our tummy. That's a breathing practice, pranayama. The first time you do that particular breathing practice, you may find you can only do it for 4 or 5 cycles because it feels unfamiliar. You may even become dizzy if you do it at first. After you become practiced in it, you become more adept and you don't become dizzy. It's a very nice breathing practice. The other very common pranayama is called alternate nostril breathing. Have you heard of that one?
It's like Kundalini yoga breathing.
Alternate nostril breathing. The traditional pose is to hold your hand up and bend down the index finger and the middle finger, although you can just use the thumb and the little finger if you choose. Yeah, whatever your fingers are most happy with, either like this, like this. And I'll demonstrate the practices to close the left nostril beginning and breathe in. Hold it. Switch. Breathe out. Hold. Breathe in. Hold it. Switch. Breathe out. Let's do our closing chant now, since Sam has to go. 3 conscious breaths. And a deep in breath. And go in peace.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Sam.